Sharks head coach Ryan Warsofsky, I appreciate the time. And first off, congratulations. You and Team USA won gold at the Worlds for the first time since 1933. And I know that you're no stranger to winning things before, but where does this sit in terms of everything else?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty high on the list, that's for sure. And, I think when you look back at the whole, 1933 and it's been 92 years, it makes it even more special. So it was a great group. It was a really fun tournament, long, but it was well worth it. So this would be up there on the list. I'm still chasing that one that's, I think, the pinnacle of what we do, and that's a Stanley Cup. So hopefully that's the next one. But yeah, this was a lot of fun, and again, like I said, it was a great group, and to bring home gold was very special.
All right, to literally bring home the gold, let's see it. What does it look like? How does it feel, by the way?
Yeah, it's actually pretty heavy, heavier than I thought. Here she is. So yeah, it was surreal feeling, when you could put that around your neck, and it's just like I said, the long time since USA Hockey has won this thing. So a lot goes into it, and something that this will go on the mantle for a long time, and be a passed down for generations, hopefully.
I mentioned before you've won some things previously. So has somebody like Will Smith, but the last couple years in San Jose for us with the Sharks, we know it's been a project. We know there's been a lot of grinding and struggling, and it's going in the right direction. We'll get there. I know that. But it must be nice just to kind of reset things and be on a team and win something and kind of get that feeling, because it does kind of push you along, I feel like, for the next, season or two or whatever.
Yeah, I truly believe, winning is almost an addiction, and
Yeah.
you get addicted to that feeling. And I think, like you said, the last 3 years has been difficult as far as the wins and losses, and we're starting to come out of the hole here a little bit, but it's time to take the next step and starting to win some more games, and hopefully, these games are really important for Will and myself. I learned a lot. I learned from some players. I learned from other staff members. It's all about getting better, and I thought both of us. And the rest of the staff with, Thomas Spear and Nick Cialdini, who are obviously here in San Jose.
Hmm.
We learned from other people. We learned from other coaches in other organizations, and hopefully to keep learning, getting better, and now we start, using these experiences and helping us, win some hockey games.
I wanted to compliment you and the team and the staff on incorporating Johnny Goodro into pretty much everything you did. How did you as a group go about that? What were the right things to do and the classy things to do? You just want to make sure it comes off the right way, and I think you did it to perfection.
Yeah, there was a conversation that, the GM, Jeff Kelty, and I had probably back, man, in March. We wanted to honor him in some way. We knew USA Hockey was going to have his jersey up in the room at all times. But we want to do something a little bit unique to Johnny, and obviously he was very into his winter hats. So, we had a winter hat made with his autograph on it, USA Hockey logo. So that was an important piece of this whole team. I think he's up there with probably the most games played in the World Championships for USA Hockey. He never said no to going to play, and that means something. That's the challenge of this tournament. You get players that are going to the National Hockey League, the grind of it, the playoffs, the injuries, and some guys, bodies can't, sustain another, 10 games. So he never said no. So we wanted to honor him. We reached out to the family, and that's something that they were, very proud of. His wife, his parents. So again, hopefully we'll get that hat back to his family. I think she deserves it, especially his wife, for his father and mother. And again, he's a very special, player. He's a special human being, him and his brother. And we were honored to kind of, have him be part of this, and he definitely was.
What did you learn about your group, Team USA, as the tournament went along? And I know there was some adversity. It wasn't flawless. It wasn't always smooth sailing. How did the group do, obviously, beyond just winning gold?
Yeah, I think when you look back at the term, we got better every single day, and that's what we ask. It's the same thing we ask in San Jose. In this tournament, it's a quick turnaround. You're right back at it. Practice time is not a lot, but our guys were very. They checked their egos at the door. There was guys sliding into roles. Shane Pinto's on the power play in Ottawa. He wasn't on our power play, and he didn't complain once. And that's what you need when you want to win. And but I think we went through some things. We had a 3-0 lead against Norway. We ended up winning in overtime. That was a good learning moment for us. We lose to Switzerland 3-0. We didn't play a very good hockey game. We thought it was going to be easy, and that was a good learning moment for us. So, I think that's important in this tournament. 2 years ago, when I was, under David Quinn and that staff, we kind of rolled through the prelim games, and then you get hit in the face with a really good team, and
Hmm.
you haven't gone through those adversity and those games and the tight checking games, and we went through that. So I thought that was really important. When we look back, we kind of had said that as a staff, like losing to Switzerland the first game was probably the best thing that could have happened to us. And our guys, our games kind of changed into we were a young perimeter team, and then we learned we have to play with a tight checking game, and we got into the inside of the ice. And if you look at the last 3 or 4 games, especially against the Germans and the Czechs, we really, our game adapted to that style of play and getting into the inside. So that's when I thought, okay, this team's kind of figured it out a little bit. So all those things kind of, you look back and those are the things that you realize probably the reasons why you probably won.
Yeah, and for you, I'm thinking maybe one of the cool takeaways is that it's a little bit of a networking opportunity. You know a lot of people in professional hockey, but maybe there were some people that you didn't get to know or work with firsthand, and now you did. I also think, too, maybe for you, this could be the chance that the door opens for more international coaching opportunities. That said, I know what tournament you'd rather be coaching in, like the one that's still going on in the NHL. But how do you see just the professional opportunity for you, what you just went through, and maybe hopefully what else could come your way?
Yeah, it's a very surreal feeling and moment, and all those thoughts go into it. But yeah, I learned a lot from our staff. I knew Mike Vellucci, who's he's had a lot of experience working under Mike Sullivan. Kevin Dean was in Chicago working for some really good young players. He was in the Boston organization. Adam Nightingale, who was at Michigan State, has really turned that program around and done a fantastic job. And Lawrence Filoni, who's a video coach in Nashville, who's worked under Peter Laviette and Barry Trotz and
Yeah.
Andrew Burnett. So there's a lot of different views on things, and we would meet, twice a day. The greatest thing, just a kind of side note, was we would, before their families got there and their wives got there, we're there just us as the coaches and the team, for 2.5 weeks, and you practice. You go home, you work out, you do your routine, and then before dinner at 5 o'clock, we'd meet every day. And we would, I would learn so much in that hour and a half before we go to dinner, from reviewing our game to what we want to do for practice, for new drills, to different concepts in the offensive zone. So, those looking back, those 2 weeks of those 5 o'clock meetings, I learned so much. I got so much value out of that from not just coaching that team in the U.S., but going forward for helping the San Jose Sharks. And it was a great staff. And then we'll see what happens. Of course, everyone would love to coach in the Olympics and play in the Olympics, and that's something that you dream of as a kid. And we'll see what happens. If they call me, they call me. If not, we'll take the 4 day or the Olympic break in stride and go from there.
That happens to be next season, by the way, so we'll have some time to figure it out. But yeah, look forward to whatever happens for you, either way. Couple more things. Will Smith's success, obviously the second half of this NHL season, kind of seems like maybe there was some carryover into this tournament. I know he was good, but almost a point per game production. So how do you see his tournament going from your firsthand perspective?
Yeah, I thought he played really well. I thought his last 2 games, against Sweden and against Swiss were the 2 best complete games that I've seen him play all year. The average fan probably doesn't see the points, and they're probably thinking, man, he didn't score, he didn't get
Right.
in. But the way he played, he was getting in the inside. He was playing with some competitive spirit. Everyone saw the clip of him finishing the guy almost into the bench. Those are the things, that I saw translate. And I think that was so important for his development to play in that type of, meaningful hockey, winning hockey, learning how to, win a puck on the wall, get it deep. Those are winning habits. And those are the habits that we need to start building with not just Will, but the rest of our group. And, I think that's what's important to play in this tournament. And when we go back and win, a guy like Tage Thompson, he didn't dump in many pucks in Buffalo. They haven't won a lot of hockey games. He learned how to win in a tight game. And, I think all of our players learned that. What it takes to win is a fine line. And I think that was the biggest thing for Will. And, I know he's a winner. He's won a lot of, I think this was his 4th gold medal. But for him to play in the National Hockey League and help this San Jose Sharks team, you have to play, a complete game in all areas and all three zones of the ice. And I thought those last two games were huge for his development.
In terms of Mac, we saw obviously the games and the results, but those clips of him assisting Sidney Crosby on that fantastic goal, or even their chit-chatting on the bench. And I think the best caption or quote I saw on social media, which isn't always my definition of a go-to place, but somebody said it was like Macklin's apprenticeship with Sidney Crosby. What could you imagine happened for Mac to be around somebody like Sid? And look, somebody he's idolized growing up watching and now getting to learn from the best of the best.
Yeah, I think it was, super important. They had an older team, not just Sid, but there's MacKinnon, there's
Yeah.
Ryan O'Reilly, Travis Sanheim. There's a lot of players on that team that he probably learned a lot from, and it could be off the ice, it could be on the ice, it could be like you saw him and Sid working on faceoffs. I think that's who Mac is. He wants to learn, he wants to get better. I think he took this time in the tournament to do those things. And, I think he's probably formed a relationship with Sid going forward where he can always reach out and ask him something if something comes up throughout the season. So, I think it was really important to Mac to play in the tournament, play for that type of team. I talked to their coach after the tournament, said he was outstanding. Him and Sid are not far off as type of the identity that they play with, right? They're ultra competitive. They can score, they can make assists, they can play defense, they can do it all. So, big growth, for Mac. I ran into him in Sweden, actually at a coffee shop randomly. So, he was hurting after that loss to Denmark, but
Yeah.
we'll pick him back up.
Thinking about the next couple weeks and months, back to the Sharks here. We haven't talked since it was revealed or announced that the Sharks would get the second overall draft pick. That must be exciting for you to know that something else is coming down the line. But maybe free agency from the coaching perspective and getting your team better this upcoming season, maybe free agency is still more of the headline for you instantly than the draft.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, especially this draft, we're not, sure of who's coming out right away.
Right.
Obviously last year we knew Macklin had a pretty good chance he was going to leave Boston University. So we'll see. I know Mike has a really good plan, and he's done a lot of homework on these draft picks, and we'll get into free agency, and there'll be some trades, and like there is every summer. So I know Mike and his staff have a really good plan on how we want to attack it. We obviously know we need to get better. There's areas of our team that need to improve, and as far as me, I'm the coach. I'm gonna, whatever players we have on our roster, we got to improve them. We got to bring them together and take the next step as an organization.
And last thing here, if I'm looking at the one thing to be excited about next year, I mean, this past season we saw a lot of Will, we saw a lot of Mac, and that's great. But I feel like next year I want to see that same exposure of more players, more of Yaroslav Askarov, maybe Colin Graff for a full season, Cam Lund. I mean, you go down the list, and Shakir Mukhamadullin, there's so many players you just want to see more of. Is that kind of already what you're looking forward to, is that next wave of what's coming?
Yeah, I think so, and I think we got to see who's going to take the next step.
Yeah.
William Mecklin take another step.
Yep.
And obviously, what Mac and Will, there's going to be some challenges again. There's in their second year, but can Colin Graff really establish himself as a full-time National Hockey League player? Can Shakir really take off from where he was playing and giving us some really good minutes and seeing the potential? Cam Lund came into the end of the year, similar to Colin Graff the year before. We're not really sure. Can he surprise us in training camp? Right. So. There's going to be a lot of competitiveness in camp. And like I say to all these guys that come in, every year there's a new draft class that comes. So if you don't put the work in the summer, if you're not skating, if you're not lifting, if you're not getting your body prepared for it, you're going to get passed. And that's what we're trying to build here in San Jose is competitiveness, and that's not just on, when we play the LA Kings or the Edmonton Orioles. That's, in training camp and day one of training camp, and we drop a puck and it's mono, like who's going to come up with the puck? Who wants that job as the, third line center or the fourth line winger? Who wants that job as being the fifth defenseman that can kill penalties and really establish himself in the National Hockey League? So that's the bar that needs to continue to kind of be risen to the top, and see who kind of can take a job and run with it. So like I said, there's a lot of players coming. There's a lot of excitement, but who's going to be the guy now that kind of jumps on it and says, "Hey, I'm gonna help this team, and I'm gonna establish myself as a National Hockey League player."
Coach, you know what? I really appreciate the time. And by the way, if you didn't want to do this chat with me, this is your fault. This is what you get for going out and winning gold. So So
I guess so.
you
I guess.
walked right into this one, but have a great couple weeks. I'm sure we'll talk after the draft, and
Yeah.
thanks again.
Thanks for having me, Brody. It was obviously a special experience, and hopefully, we can start building this thing in San Jose because we're all excited, and next year is going to be even more exciting than this past.